You can't even cook properly. Bring me my food now." My husband stormed into the kitchen, his brow furrowed when he saw the unfinished dishes. "You're driving Mom crazy with your carelessness." At that moment, a stack of plates toppled off the table, crashing to the floor in a shower of shards. My husband's face remained calm. "This is your fault. You shouldn't have stacked them like that," he declared, then turned and walked out of the kitchen. Hearing the sound of breaking dishes, my father-in-law rushed in. "Are you okay?" he asked with concern. His eyes met mine and he fell silent, stunned by what he saw. "I'm going to ask my wife what's going on here." "You should come too," he said in a low, unfamiliar voice that sent a chill down my spine. "My name is Helen Davis, and I am 32 years old. I have been married to my husband, Arlo, who is 3 years older than me, for almost a year now. Before we got married, I was an outpatient nurse at a small pediatric clinic, but I recently moved to a general hospital in the same city to improve my skills. 1 year of marriage still qualifies us as newlyweds, I think, but we've been living with my mother-in-law since the day we got married. Arlo wanted to move in with his mother because he was worried about her being left alone, as his father worked out of town. At first, I thought it would be comforting. I imagined we'd help and support each other during busy times, but I soon realized I was wrong. "Helen, you are terrible," Tiana snapped at me the morning after my first night shift at the new hospital. I had worked between midnight and 8:30 a.m., a schedule I wasn't used to. I came home exhausted and dizzy, only to be greeted by her shouting. It was 9 in the morning, and my husband was at work. Our neighbors were likely passing by our house, but that didn't stop Tiana from cornering me and yelling loud enough to be heard outside. "You didn't even make me breakfast. What are you thinking?" she accused. "What breakfast?" I asked, confused. "I prepared breakfast last night before going to work. Did Arlo eat it all?" Even after I pointed this out, she didn't stop. I rubbed my sleepy eyes, deciding to make breakfast for her again. "You're so inflexible and exhausting," she huffed as I set the food in front of her. She didn't even thank me. Instead, she took one bite and complained, "It's too salty." I tried to ignore her and turned to leave the room to get some rest, but my mother-in-law stopped me again. "Hey, Helen, where are you going? You still have dishes to clean up," she demanded. "I'm sorry, Tiana," I replied, struggling to stay polite. "I just finished my shift. Could you please wash them?" "Huh? What are you talking about? Cleaning up is part of cooking, isn't it? I left the cleaning and laundry for you to do. So if you're going to take a break, can you take care of those things first?" my mother-in-law concluded. "Well, it'll have to wait until I get some rest," I said, desperate for sleep. "What do you mean? You're Arlo's wife, right? And you don't have a child to keep you busy." So, I realized she wasn't going to let me rest. Exhausted, I hoisted myself up and did the chores she demanded. Recently, she'd been dropping hints like, "When you have a child, leave the housework to me," making it clear she wanted grandchildren. Arlo is an only child, so Tiana is laser-focused on me giving her grandchildren. "I heard my friend's daughter-in-law and son conceived on their honeymoon," Tiana bragged one day. "And another friend's daughter-in-law is already a mother of 3. I'm so jealous. I can't wait to meet my grandchildren. I do want to have a baby as soon as possible, partly to escape her constant nagging. But despite trying everything, taking supplements, visiting a fertility shrine, I still can't get pregnant." Finally, after finishing all the chores, I told Tiana, "I'm going to take a break now." But before I could even sit down, she smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, but it's almost lunchtime. Pasta is fine for me." Exhausted, I finally managed to get to bed at noon. Later, I brought up the fertility treatment with Arlo. "The doctor at the clinic wants us to come together to make a treatment plan. Could you free up your Saturday morning?" I asked him. "What? What's that? I've never heard of that before," Arlo replied, looking surprised. "You told me to go to the hospital because you were worried about us not having children," I reminded him. "I did say that, but why do I have to go?" he asked, irritated. "Arlo, fertility treatment requires the cooperation of both the husband and wife," I explained. "The doctor said your reproductive health is just as important as mine. They'll check your semen to make sure everything's normal." I continued, but my husband cut me off. "Why don't you do that alone? It's none of my business, he interrupted. It is your business. This is about us, isn't it? Every time I see your mom, she asks me why we don't have children yet, I said, my frustration boiling over. Don't you dare speak badly about my mother. It's your fault because you're infertile. Fix it, Arlo snapped. I need your cooperation to do that, I pleaded. The doctor said a semen analysis is essential for fertility testing. I'm healthy and there's no problem. Arlo cut me off again. We have a good marriage and I have plenty of sperm. There's no need for a semen test. Then prove it to me, I challenged him. How would you like it if your colleagues saw you in a place like that? Are you trying to humiliate me? Anyway, I'm definitely not going, he refused firmly. Did I ask him the wrong way? I wondered as Arlo pulled the covers over his head, signaling he was done talking. I looked down at him, sighed deeply, and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling defeated. It's not uncommon for nurses to work night shifts. The schedules are different depending on the institution, but my new employer basically has a 3-shift system. In addition to the day shift, there are 4 or 5 late-night shifts a month, and about 8 night shifts a month, if you include the semi-night shift. But the problem wasn't my irregular work schedule. It's the constant orders my mother-in-law gives me when I'm at home. Nurses are supposed to have the benefit of being exempt from day shifts after night shifts, but since I had to take care of the house, I practically never had a day off. If I had known this is what it would be like, I never would have changed jobs. Lately, my mother-in-law's criticism had been getting worse and worse. It's hard to believe, considering how she acts now, but when we first got married, she never pressured me or expected me to do housework. I can't help but wonder if things changed because of my fertility issues. I was healthy and kind of thick when we first got married, and then I became skin and bones. I looked sickly, but somehow my mother-in-law and husband didn't seem to notice. Maybe it was because we saw each other every day and it was hard to see the difference. One summer day, my husband happily came to me with an idea. We are going to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday this coming Sunday, he said. She is very excited about inviting a lot of friends, so I need you to take care of the preparations. He then handed me a piece of paper. It had a list of names and contact info for the guests and a detailed menu, all in Tiana's handwriting. She had written down the tableware and the brand of liquor she wanted. She even wrote the order she wanted the food to be served. I was surprised by the number of guests in the schedule. 10 people? I said, unable to hide my surprise. This much food for only 10 people? And it's Sunday. It would be right after my late shift, I reminded him. My mother said that day was good for her, Arlo replied. You'll be fine. You're always up till past noon anyway. The celebration is at noon, so it won't be an issue, he said calmly before leaving the room, leaving me stunned. I didn't think either of them would help me. I was certain they wouldn't. It was the morning of my mother-in-law's 60th birthday celebration as usual. I came home from a late-night shift, feeling woozy, and did what my mother-in-law asked me to do. I had done the laundry and cleaning last night, which was good, but my husband ate some of the food that I had bought in advance, so I had to go shopping again. Thanks to him, before I could start cooking the main course, the guests started arriving at the house one after another. While my well-dressed mother-in-law showed the guests around, I hurriedly prepared drinks, some dishes, and glasses. While they were enjoying those, I tried to get the main course ready in time. I was already running out of time, but I kept working hard to get everything ready. But making up the time wasn't easy. What are you doing, Helen? You're late, my husband shouted, probably at his mom's request, just as I was about to finish the all-important main course. My husband stomped into the kitchen, his brow furrowing when he saw the unfinished dish. You can't even prep the food right. Bring me the food now. You're making Mom mad. My husband swore and left the kitchen with an extra bottle of wine. At that moment, some of the plates that had been stacked on top of each other collapsed and fell off the kitchen table, shattering into pieces. I was terrified because they were my mother-in-law's favorite plates. My husband's face was calm. That's your fault. You shouldn't have stacked them up like that. That was all he said. Then he left the kitchen. Of course, he didn't even try to help me. I crouched down on the floor and silently began to clean up the broken dishes. I hated it. Why do I always have to be the one to do everything? I muttered to myself. What's wrong? I heard a gentle voice. I turned around, surprised to see Douglas, my father-in-law, standing at the kitchen door with a large package. Apparently, he had heard the sound of broken dishes. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His genuine concern made me want to cry. Come to think of it, it had been a long time since I heard such kind words from someone in this house. After all, I had not seen Douglas since New Year's Day. He came over to my side of the table and helped me gather the shattered dishes. Then he looked in amazement at all the food and dishes laid out in the kitchen. "Wow, did you do all this yourself, Helen?" he asked, looking around as if searching for someone who might have helped me. But nobody was there. I had no help. "It happens all the time," I told him in a self-mocking tone of resignation. Then I gathered up the pieces of dishes and stood up. He was speechless. I looked very different from the last time he saw me, and it was obvious I was having a hard time. My hair was thin and disheveled, and my skin looked bad with dark circles under my eyes. I wasn't the lively person I was back then. Looking at the piles of food in front of me, he seemed to start to understand the situation. His surprised expression turned into an angry one, seeing the miserable look on my face. "I'm going to ask my wife what's going on. You should come too," he said in a low voice I had never heard before. "I haven't done the dishes yet," I replied. "You don't have to," my father-in-law said firmly. I resisted, but he comforted me and took me with him to the living room. My mother-in-law was chatting with the guests and pouring a glass of wine that my husband had brought. "Hey Helen, how long are you going to keep me waiting?" my mother-in-law said sharply. "Oh, there you are at last," she added, glancing at Douglas. "Everyone, this is my husband. He's been working out of town and came home just for me," Tiana announced, introducing my father-in-law to the guests. When my mother-in-law introduced Douglas, the guests greeted him with nods and smiles. Her husband smiled and nodded back. "Thank you very much for coming today. I'm Douglas, her husband. My foolish wife is grateful for your hospitality." "Oh my God," Tiana said, laughing nervously. "You called me a foolish wife. This is my birthday." "You are foolish, truly," my father-in-law added. What?" Tiana exclaimed in confusion. That one word changed the harmonious atmosphere to awkward and silent. Douglas made me stand with him, even though I was subtly hiding behind him. He faced the guests. "I would like to introduce you to my son's wife, Helen," my father-in-law continued. "Hey honey, Helen is busy preparing," my mother-in-law tried to explain. Douglas glared at her and she swallowed her words. "A year and a half ago, she married my son. She was a cheerful, smiling young lady, and I was convinced that she and my son would have a bright future. But how does she look now? She didn't look so miserable 6 months ago," he concluded. Some of the guests started to murmur, saying, "She doesn't look anything like her photos, and she's way too skinny." Douglas turned to Tiana and asked, "Why has she changed so much?" My mother-in-law hesitated before responding, "Well, I don't know. Probably because work is too hard. You know, I told you on the phone that she changed hospitals and has been on the night shift since the start of the year." Douglas frowned and said, Okay, so are all of Helen's colleagues suffering like that? If so, it's a clear violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. I'll have to contact the union," my mother-in-law stammered defensively. "No, that's not." But my father-in-law interrupted her. "Are you still pretending you know nothing? I just heard that you've been hard on Helen and haven't been giving her any time to rest. I heard that she worked a late-night shift earlier, and then you told her to cook all of that by herself after no sleep and a long shift," he added angrily. That was the truth. I had told Douglas everything. I told him that for the past 6 months I had been treated like a housekeeper without a day off. When Tiana turned her head away, unable to argue with him, Douglas glared at my husband and demanded, "You too, Arlo. You knew Helen has been going through this, so why haven't you done anything?" Arlo replied defensively, "That's because it's between Helen and Mom. I had nothing to do with it." Douglas's voice rose. "What did you vow at the wedding? Didn't you swear to protect and support her? To make her happy? Does she look happy to you?" Arlo stammered, "Well, of course. There were times that I thought it was a little much, but Mom said it was normal for a woman without a child to do all this." My father-in-law shook his head in disbelief. "As a husband, you should put your partner before your mother. Have you already forgotten how your first marriage ended? Because you pushed her too? Arlo's face turned red. I looked at him, jaw dropped. I already knew that my husband had gotten divorced before we got married, but I didn't know that his ex-wife had been treated badly like I was. It all came together in my head. Tiana suddenly snapped, "Let me tell you something. This is the kind of work she should be doing as a woman without kids. It's been a year since they got married, and she still can't have a baby. She's an unfit wife." Douglas's tone turned cold. "Even if she were infertile, you can't blame her for that. You're just taking it out on her." "What? How dare you? You've been gone for so long. What do you know about it?" "You have no idea," Tiana yelled. "Everyone brags about their grandchildren, and I'm the only one who doesn't have any. I'm lonely. I want a grandchild as soon as possible." When Tiana shouted this, she broke down in tears. I felt a little sorry for her, but it didn't take away from the fact that she had caused me so much mental and physical pain over the last 6 months, especially since she had treated Arlo's ex-wife badly too. I looked her in the eye and said firmly, "I don't think you'll be getting any grandchildren for a long time." I held out a few pieces of paper that I had taken from my room. "These are the results of the tests I took at the fertility clinic. Blood tests, AMH, uterine and fallopian tube drainage tests, anti-sperm antibody tests. Everything was fine. My body is normal." "If the situation was the same with his ex-wife, can't you guess what's wrong?" I asked firmly. "The problem is with Arlo," Essa continued, glaring at my husband. "Huh?" Arlo stammered. "You had a hunch, didn't you? That's why you didn't want to have the test done. And yet, instead of protecting me, you treated me like a housekeeper, like your mother does." I sighed and added, "I did love you, so I thought I could keep the test results to myself, but you yelled at me again and wouldn't even help me. Also, apparently, you did terrible things to your ex-wife too, so I just don't care anymore." Wait a minute," my husband begged. "It's not true. I can't be infertile, right?" "Well, why don't you get a proper examination?" I shot back. "But regardless of the results, it's not important to me anymore." With that last comment, I turned my back on my husband, who kept shouting excuses, and my sobbing mother-in-law, and I left the living room. Just before I closed the door, I heard the faint sound of the guests leaving. Later, my husband and I officially divorced through an attorney. My husband was very insistent, but thanks to Douglas's recording of our conversation that day, it was proven that I had been emotionally abused by him and Tiana over a 6-month period. Plus, my husband had a sperm analysis and found out that he had oligospermia, and my mother-in-law was furious with him. After my husband and I successfully completed our divorce proceedings, my ex-parents-in-law decided to divorce too. I had hoped that Arlo and Tiana would change their minds due to his ex-wife's case, but it didn't happen. My father-in-law explained that was the reason. Douglas began to apologize to me for not understanding the situation sooner, and for not urging Arlo to take the semen test before we got married. According to a rumor, my ex-mother-in-law, who was kicked out of her house, is now living with Arlo in public housing in the same city, and her former friends have cut her off. Plus, the rumor of the incident spread, and now my ex-husband is shamed at work. My father-in-law introduced me to a man, and after 6 months of dating, I remarried. He thinks he's very reliable. He works under Douglas. We are happily living together. The other day, I had a checkup with my obstetrician and found out I'm 2 months pregnant. I'm planning to visit Douglas soon to share the news. After all, he introduced us and helped me escape that awful living situation.